In the last lesson, we built a customer table, and we stored information into that customer table. Now, let's build a customer query to limit that data and the way it's displayed. Okay, here we have our customer table. Now, we only have a handful of records in our customer table. We only have 8 customers in there right now. But for the sake of class, let's pretend we have 8,000 customers in there. And the boss comes up and says, hey, I want a list of all those customers. I want it sorted by last name and then first name. I want to see only customers from New York, and I want it on my desk in 5 minutes. Okay, you say. How do I do that? Well, let's go ahead and build a query to do just that. Let's start out by clicking on Queries, and you'll see there's nothing in here. Let's create a new query. Now again, the query wizard is an evil wizard, so we're going to stay away from it today. But let's come up here and click on New. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to build queries. You got simple query wizards and crosstab query wizards and all kinds of other things in here. We'll talk about these in a future class. For today, let's pick Design View and then click on OK. Now, the query window pops up, and in front of it you can see a window that says Show Table. The concept here is that a query can be made up of one or more tables or one or more queries, or both. So you can have tables and queries and all kinds of stuff in your queries. Right now, we only have one table, our customer table. So we're going to build a query based only on our customer table. So make sure customer table is highlighted, it should be, and then click on Add. You'll notice in the background back here, let me move this window out of the way. You'll notice in the background that customer T has floated into our query 1. That's fine. Now, let's go ahead and close this window. I'll click on Close. And now we're at the Query Designer. Now, this window looks strange. It's the weirdest looking window you're going to see in Access. In fact, a lot of my first-time students have a hard time getting a hold of how this query window works. But once you get the hang of it, it's real easy. Basically, here's our customer table. You can ignore that star for now. But notice here are all the fields in our customer table. Customer ID, first name, last name, and so on. And you can scroll all the way down and see the different fields. Down here in these columns, this is where we're going to put those fields. Whatever fields you want from the table to show in the query, we're going to bring down into these columns. So the boss said he wanted a list of all of our customers sorted by last name, then first name, from New York. So how do we do that? Well, let's bring that information into our query. So let's find, here's first name. Let's click on first name and drag it, click and drag, hold the mouse button down, and drag it and drop it on that first column. And there we go. There's first name. Let's get the last name. Let's click on last name, hold it down, and drag it over here and drop it on the second column. And there we go. There's the first name and the last name. Okay, let's see what we got so far. We got the first name and the last name in our query. Let's run the query now. Right up here on the toolbar, there's a little exclamation point. It's a red exclamation point, or a shoe print if you want to call it a shoe print. And if you hold your mouse over it, it says run. What does that do? That runs our query. Go ahead and click on that exclamation point now. And there we go. Our query has now run. And the query is giving us exactly what we told it to give us. It's giving us all the records in our table. There's first name and last name. No, they're not sorted, but you know what? We didn't tell Access to sort anything yet. I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And no, they're not limited to only customers from New York, because again, we haven't done that yet. The query gave us exactly what we asked for. Unfortunately, however, that's not what the boss wants. So a lot of times figuring out what to do is a matter of taking what we want to do and making Access do it. So let's go back into our query designer. Now right here on the toolbar, all the way to the left, you'll see a little T-square. Looks like a T-square and a pencil. Go ahead and click right on that T-square, and that'll put you back in design mode. All right, now the next step here is to sort this list. Now the boss wanted it sorted by last name and then by first name. Notice down here, there's a row header that says sort. Well, watch this. Click right here in this box under first name in the sort row, and there's a drop-down box. Let's click on that drop-down box. And notice it says ascending, descending, and not sorted. Now, very important, by the way, remember that ascending has nothing to do with the back of a donkey. Okay, bad joke. Ascending will sort them A to Z. Descending sorts them, obviously, in reverse order. Let's pick ascending, or ascending if you prefer. And now let's run our query. Click on the little run button. And there we go. Notice we've now sorted them by first name. A, B, D, J, and so on. Again, we're still not quite where what the boss wants, but we're getting there. Let's go back to design view. Click on the T-square. All right, let's try sorting based on last name. So let's come over here and click in the sort box under last name and drop this box down and pick ascending. And now let's run it. And we're no better off, are we? Still got it sorted by first name and then last name. How do we fix this? Well, let's go back to design view one more time. The key to remember here is that Access sorts the fields from left to right. So if you want to sort last name and then first name, you have to have last name on the left-hand side of first name. Now we could redo this query over again, but it's easy just to move these fields. Watch this. Move your mouse right there over that little gray bar on the top of the column. You should see your mouse turn into a downward pointing black arrow. Click there, and that will highlight the column. Don't hold the mouse button down. Now, click on that same spot and drag your field to the left, and you should notice a black line jump over there. Now, release the mouse button, and there we go. I've just moved the fields. I'll click over here in right field to unhighlight it. And now let's run the query. And there we go. Now they're sorted by last name and then by first name. Let's go back to design view again. And now the boss wants it limited, so we're only seeing customers from New York. So in order to do that, we have to add the state field to our query. So let's find the state field. Here it is. Now, I don't know about you, but I really hate clicking and dragging. So I'm going to do a shortcut here. I'm going to double-click on the state field, and watch this. Click, click, and there it goes. It pops the state field into the next available column. Now if I run my query, there's all the states. And as you can see, I've got 2 customers from New York State. Let's go back to design view. Now how do I limit these records so that I only see customers from New York State? Well, notice down here, there is a criteria row. Well, in the criteria row under state, let's click right there. Let's type in New York, N-Y, and then hit tab. Notice that Access puts quotes around New York. That's okay. We'll talk more about what that is in the next class. But for now, just notice that any text that you put in there, whatever the criteria happens to be, is going to be enclosed in quotes. Let's go ahead and run our query now. And there we go. I'm only seeing customers from New York State. Let's go ahead now and save our query. I'm going to click on the floppy disk button up here. And let's call this Customers from New York Q. No spaces and a big Q on the end. And then I'll hit OK. And there we go. Notice the title is now across the top of the query. Let's close this query now. And now I'm back to the main database window. And there's our query. The beauty of a query is that next month when the boss wants this information again, all you have to do is double-click on Customers from New York. And there's your query. All your work is already done for you. Anyone who has no access skills can also run this query to get your information. In our next Access course, we're going to do a lot more with queries. We're even going to show you how to do something called a parameter query, where the user that's running the query can specify the criteria when he runs the query. That's very powerful, and we'll cover that in our next Access course.